The mansion was still buzzing with whispers of betrayal, guards moving with sharper eyes, weapons at the ready. But Jaehyun didn't send Danielle back to her room. Instead, he led her to his private quarters. It wasn't what she expected. She had imagined luxury as cold and untouchable as the man himself. But the room was surprisingly understated dark wood, muted tones, and a faint scent of cedar smoke. Felt human. "Sit," he commanded gently, guiding her toward the edge of his bed. Danielle lowered herself onto the mattress, her heart pounding. She hated how small she felt, how shaken, how easily fear still clung to her bones. Jaehyun crouched before her, his presence filling the space, steady and grounding. For a long moment, neither spoke. His hands rested lightly on his knees, but his gaze never left her face. Finally, he reached out slowly as though giving her the chance to refuse. His fingers brushed her wrist, tracing the faint red marks where Miho had gripped her too tightly. Danielle flinched, but she didn't pull away. His jaw tightened. "Did he hurt you?" She shook her head, though her voice was soft, trembling. "No, not really." His eyes darkened, as though the mere idea burned him. His thumb lingered against her skin, warm and protective. "I should have killed him sooner," he muttered, more to himself than to her. Danielle's breath caught. That's what terrifies me, Jaehyun. How easily you say that. How easily you—" She trailed off, unable to finish. He lifted his gaze to hers. For once, there was no steel, no mask. Only a raw, aching honesty. "I kill easily because I must," he said quietly. "But do not mistake that for indifference. Every choice leaves a mark. Every death stays with me. And now," his voice lowered, rough, intimate, "now your safety will stay with me too." Her chest tightened. The world outside this room was soaked in blood. But here, in his voice, she heard something that shouldn't have existed in a man like him care. Her eyes stung. "Why me?" He studied her as if the answer lay somewhere in the lines of her face. His hand moved, brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. His touch lingered, feather-light, almost reverent. "Because you were not supposed to be here," he whispered. "And yet you are. And I cannot let you go." The air thickened. Danielle's pulse quickened, her breath shallow. She should have pulled away, should have told him to stop. But she didn't. For one charged moment, the world narrowed to the space between them. His breath mingling with hers, his hand against her cheek, the unspoken promise in his eyes. If he leaned closer, if she let him. But he stopped himself. With a sharp breath, he pulled back, rising to his feet, his mask slamming back into place. "You'll sleep here tonight," he said, his voice clipped, controlled. "Where I can keep you safe." Danielle's heart thundered. She couldn't tell if the safety he promised was from the world or from himself. Either way, she realized something terrifying as she lay down in the dragon's chamber, the firelight flickering against the walls. She was no longer just afraid of him. She was afraid of what she was starting to feel. Danielle couldn't sleep. The mansion was quiet, the shadows long, but her mind refused to settle. She lay in Jaehyun's chamber, the heavy blanket pulled around her, every creak of the wooden beams above whispering the same truth. She was in the dragon's den. And yet she wasn't afraid. Not tonight. The faint sound of a door opening pulled her from restless thoughts. She sat up just as Jaehyun stepped inside, his white shirt unbuttoned at the collar, his jacket gone. The sight was startling. He looked less like the untouchable Mafia boss and more like a man. "You're still awake," he said softly, closing the door behind him. Danielle's throat tightened. Hard to sleep after everything. He studied her for a long moment, then crossed the room. Instead of keeping his distance, he sat at the edge of the bed, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. Silence stretched, but it wasn't empty. It pulsed with something she couldn't name. Jaehyun leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, his gaze fixed on the fire flickering in the hearth. "When I was younger, I swore I would never let anyone close to me again." Danielle blinked, startled. He never spoke of himself. "What changed?" she asked quietly. His jaw clenched. You! The word struck her like a physical blow. She swallowed hard, her heart thundering. Me? I'm nothing, Jae-hyun. Just an English teacher who made a wrong turn. He turned then, his gaze locking on hers with a sharp intensity. Don't say that. Her breath caught. His voice was rough, stripped bare. Do you know how many people I deal with every day? Men who kill, who betray, who smile while sharpening their knives. They're all the same. Predictable. Empty. He shifted closer, his hand lifting, hovering near her face but not touching. But you look at me like I'm still human. And that terrifies me more than any bullet. Danielle's eyes burned with unshed tears. She wanted to speak, to deny, to confess. She didn't know which. Instead, she whispered, Jae-hyun. His hand finally touched her, fingers brushing against her cheek. Warm, gentle, so gentle it broke something inside her. She leaned into his palm before she could stop herself. The air between them changed, thickened. His face was so close now, his breath mingling with hers, his eyes dark but vulnerable. For one suspended heartbeat, she knew he would kiss her. And God help her, she wanted him to. Her lips parted, but he pulled back. Just barely. Just enough. His breath was ragged, his control fraying. If I touch you the way I want to, I won't stop. Her chest rose and fell, trembling. Then don't stop. His eyes flashed with hunger, pain, and restraint all at once. For a moment, she thought he would give in. Then he tore himself away, standing abruptly, pacing like a man on fire. Not now, he growled, more to himself than to her. Not when the world wants to use you against me. Danielle pressed a hand to her lips, her skin still tingling where his touch lingered. She felt fragile, undone, as if her heart had been laid bare. Neither of them slept that night, but both knew something had shifted. They had stepped to the edge of fire, and sooner or later one of them would burn. The night stretched long and silent, but Danielle's heart was anything but calm. She lay awake in the dragon's chamber, every nerve alive, every breath a reminder of how close she had come to losing herself to him, and how much she still wanted to. The sound of the door opening again jolted her from her thoughts. Jae-hyun entered without a word, his movements deliberate, quiet. The faint glow of the fire painted his features in molten shadows. Couldn't sleep? She asked, her voice low. His eyes lingered on her, dark and unreadable. Neither could you. He approached slowly, every step tightening the air between them. When he stopped at the edge of the bed, Danielle's pulse hammered so loud she was sure he could hear it. For a moment he only looked at her. Then he reached out, his knuckles grazing her jaw in a touch so light it made her ache. You should fear me, he murmured. But you don't. Her breath caught. Maybe I should, but I don't. Something cracked in his expression, the faintest fracture in his iron control. His thumb brushed her lower lip, lingering there, testing. Danielle? His voice was rough, frayed, a warning and a plea tangled into one. Her eyes fluttered shut, and she whispered, Don't stop this time. That was all it took. In a heartbeat, his mouth claimed hers. Fierce, hungry, desperate. The kiss was fire and steel, consuming everything between them. She gasped against him, her hands clutching the fabric of his shirt, pulling him closer. Jae-hyun's control shattered. One hand tangled in her hair, the other curved around her waist, dragging her against him as though he could fuse her into his very skin. The taste of him was heat and danger, and she knew she should be terrified. Yet every part of her wanted more. She broke away only long enough to breathe, her lips swollen, her voice trembling. I don't care about your world, Jae-hyun. I don't care what it makes you. His forehead pressed to hers, his chest heaving. You should, because it will destroy you. Then let it. Her fingers brushed his jaw, her eyes locking with his. As long as it's with you. His groan was half anguish, half surrender. He kissed her again, slower this time, deep, reverent, as though she were the first real thing he had touched in years. And for once, the dragon didn't feel untouchable. He felt human. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, the world outside the walls of that room didn't matter. The danger, the betrayal, the war looming beyond the gates. None of it could touch this moment. For tonight, it was only him and her. The dragon and the woman who had finally set him ablaze. The night after their kiss was too still, too quiet. Danielle woke to a gnawing unease she couldn't name. The mansion's halls were silent, the usual footsteps of guards absent, replaced by a heavy hush that pressed against her chest. She sat up in Jaehyun's bed, the fire long since burned down to glowing embers. He wasn't beside her. His side of the sheets was cold, her stomach twisted. Pulling on a robe, she padded toward the door, meaning only to peek into the hall. That was when the first crack split the air. Not a footstep, not a voice. Gunfire. Danielle froze. Another round followed, this time louder, closer. Shouts echoed through the mansion. Shouts in Korean, frantic and sharp. Her breath caught. They were under attack. The door slammed open, and Jaehyun stormed in, gun in hand, his shirt half unbuttoned, eyes blazing. "Stay down." His voice was a whip of command. Before she could ask, the sound of splintering wood and boots pounding against marble shook the air. He grabbed her arm, pulling her hard against his chest as bullets rattled the hallway outside. The doorframe exploded in a spray of wood. Danielle screamed, ducking against him, his body shielding hers completely. The dragon didn't flinch. His gun barked fire, each shot precise, controlled. One intruder fell, then another. Jaehyun. Her voice broke. "What's happening?" "The black serpents," he growled, reloading with terrifying calm. "They've come for me. For us." The word us lodged deep in her chest, but there was no time to dwell on it. He grabbed her hand, pulling her toward the far side of the room. A hidden panel in the wall slid open, revealing a narrow corridor lit only by dim bulbs. "Go," he ordered. She hesitated. "What about you?" His jaw clenched, his eyes searing into hers. "I'll be right behind you. But if they take you, Danielle, they won't just use you, they'll break you. And I will burn the world before I let that happen." Her throat tightened, but there was no time to argue. She stumbled into the corridor, heart hammering, Jaehyun close on her heels. Gunfire echoed from every corner of the mansion now, the clash of steel and flesh filling the air with violence. The narrow passage spilled into a wider service hall, where 3 masked serpents were waiting. Danielle gasped, her back hitting the wall. Jaehyun moved like a storm. One went down with a bullet to the chest. The second, he disarmed with brutal efficiency. The man's own knife turned against him. The third lunged for Danielle. She screamed, only for Jaehyun to slam the man against the wall with such force the plaster cracked. Blood sprayed. Silence followed. Danielle's legs trembled beneath her. Her hands shook, her chest tight. She had never seen death this close, never felt danger this immediate. And yet, when she looked at Jaehyun, all she could feel was the strength of his grip, the raw desperation in his eyes. "You see now," he rasped, his chest heaving. "This is the price of being mine." Her tears spilled over. "Then I'll pay it." For a moment, the fire of battle faltered in his gaze. His hand cupped her cheek, tender and rough all at once, his thumb smearing a streak of blood she hadn't even realized was on her skin. Then the shouting grew louder, footsteps pounding closer. The serpents weren't done. Jaehyun straightened, fury and determination hardening his face into steel. "Stay behind me, no matter what." And as he turned to face the coming storm, Danielle realized the truth in her bones. The dragon wasn't fighting just for his empire anymore. He was fighting for her. The mansion burned with chaos. Shouts in Korean tangled with the crack of gunfire, the clash of blades, the screams of dying men. Smoke drifted through the corridors, the acrid scent of gunpowder choking the air. Jaehyun moved like the shadow of death itself, gun in one hand, blade in the other. Every strike was efficient, merciless, a storm of violence no one could stop. Danielle stayed close, her heart slamming against her ribs, fear and adrenaline mixing until she could hardly breathe. They turned into the east wing and the world shattered. An explosion ripped through the hallway ahead, the force slamming Danielle against the wall. Pain burst in her shoulder as debris rained down. For a dizzy second, her ears rang, her vision blurred. Danielle! Jaehyun's voice cut through the haze, rough with panic. His hands gripped her, pulling her up, steadying her against his chest. His jaw was tight, his eyes sharp even through the smoke. "I'm okay," she whispered, though she wasn't sure she believed it. Another volley of gunfire. Men surged through the wreckage, serpent insignias scrawled across their black masks. Jaehyun shoved Danielle behind a toppled table, then rose like a demon unleashed. The dragon fought. Every bullet he fired found its mark. Every movement was brutal precision, his blade flashing silver in the dim light. Blood sprayed, bodies fell, and still he moved, untouchable, unstoppable. Danielle had never seen anything like it. Terrifying, and yet breathtaking. But then, "Boss!" A voice rose above the chaos. A guard. One of Jaehyun's own men. He stumbled into view, blood smeared across his arm, eyes wide. "The serpents are breaching the west side. We need to fall back." Jaehyun barked orders in rapid Korean. The man nodded quickly, too quickly, and glanced toward Danielle. Her stomach clenched. Something was wrong. Before she could speak, the man lunged. Not at Jaehyun, but at her. Danielle gasped as his hand clamped around her wrist, yanking her up from cover. "Got her!" he shouted in English. The world tilted. Betrayal. "No!" Jaehyun's roar shook the walls. The guard dragged Danielle toward the wreckage, toward waiting serpents who surged forward at the signal. She kicked, clawed, fought, but his grip was iron. Panic clawed at her chest. And then Jaehyun was there. He slammed into the traitor with a fury that shook the air, his blade flashing across the man's throat before Danielle even hit the ground. Blood sprayed hot across the floor. Danielle scrambled back, her hands shaking, her breath ragged. The traitor gurgled, collapsed, and Jaehyun stood over him, chest heaving, eyes burning with a rage so deep it was almost madness. When he turned to her, his face was carved with fury, but not at her, at himself. "They got inside my house," he spat, voice trembling with rage. "They got close to you." He reached for her, his hands rough but shaking as they cupped her face. "I will never forgive myself if you bleed because of me." Her tears spilled, fear and relief colliding. "I don't care about your empire, Jaehyun. I only care that you're here, with me." For one moment, amid the blood, the fire, the bodies, the dragon broke. His forehead pressed to hers, his breath unsteady. He kissed her, fierce and desperate, as though to remind them both she was still alive. The battle still raged around them. But in that kiss, Danielle knew one truth. The dragon was hers, and he would burn the world to keep her safe. The mansion was a ruin of smoke and blood. The fires had been stamped out, but the air was thick with the metallic tang of death. For the first time, Danielle saw cracks in Jaehyun's empire. Men broken, walls shattered, the invincibility of his world scorched by the serpent's fury. But when he pulled her into his private study, away from the chaos, all she saw was him. His hands still trembled faintly when he touched her, as though afraid she might vanish. His shirt was torn, blood streaking his arm. Not his, but still a reminder of how close he had come to losing everything. "You should have left the moment you saw me that night," he murmured, voice raw. "You should have run and never looked back." Danielle's heart clenched. "Would you have let me?" His silence was answer enough. She stepped closer, her hand brushing against his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart. "I don't want to run anymore." His eyes closed, pain and desire twisting his expression. "You don't understand, Danielle. If they can't break me, they'll destroy you. You're not just mine now. You're the mark they'll hunt until their last breath." Her voice was steady, though her hands trembled. "Then let them come, because I'd rather burn with you than live safe without you." The words shattered him. His lips crashed against hers, rough and desperate, a kiss that tasted of fire and ash. She melted into him, her hands tangled in his hair, and for a moment, just a moment, they let the world fall away. But the world didn't wait. A shout outside. Heavy footsteps. The door slammed open. The black serpent leader stepped into the study, flanked by armed men. A tall, scarred man with eyes like poison. He smiled, cruel and cold. "So this is the woman," he sneered, his gaze sliding to Danielle. "The dragon's weakness." Jaehyun shoved her behind him, his body a living shield. His voice was lethal steel. "You made a mistake coming here yourself." The battle erupted. Gunfire lit the room, books exploding into torn pages, with splintering under the force. Jaehyun moved like fire, every shot precise, every strike brutal. But there were too many. Danielle ducked behind the desk, her heart slamming, praying, begging, until the sound she feared most split the air. A shot. A cry. Jaehyun staggered, blood blooming across his side. "No!" Danielle screamed, scrambling toward him. The serpent leader laughed, circling like a viper. "Even dragons bleed." Jaehyun fought to stay upright, teeth clenched against the pain. His gun wavered, his strength faltering. The leader raised his weapon for the final strike. And Danielle moved. She didn't think. She didn't hesitate. She grabbed the fallen blade at her feet and launched herself at the serpent leader. Terror and adrenaline fused into one burning surge. She slashed wildly, forcing him back, her scream echoing through the wreckage. The shock bought Jaehyun enough time. He lifted his gun with shaking hands and fired. The leader's smile froze before his body crumpled to the ground. Silence. Smoke. The serpent was dead. Danielle dropped the blade, her hands trembling as she crawled to Jaehyun's side. Blood soaked his shirt, his skin pale. "Stay with me," she begged, tears streaming down her face. "You can't leave me now, not after." His hand lifted, weak but determined, brushing her cheek. His lips curved faintly, even through the pain. "Now you're marked," he whispered. "Marked by the dragon. Forever." His eyes fluttered closed, his body slumping against her. Danielle's sob tore through the broken room. She held him tight, refusing to let go, even as the mansion filled with the footsteps of loyal men rushing to their fallen boss. For the first time, the dragon bled. And for the first time, Danielle realized just how much she was willing to fight for him. Danielle barely remembered how she got to the hospital. The next hours blurred into a haze of blood, sirens, and the sharp smell of antiseptic. She refused to leave Jaehyun's side, her hand wrapped around his even when the doctors pushed her back. She prayed, bargained, whispered promises into his stillness. "Don't you dare leave me. Not now. Not after everything." Days passed. He hovered between life and death, the dragon brought low. But he fought, as he always had, and slowly his strength clawed its way back. The first time his eyes opened, finding her beside him, Danielle broke into tears she hadn't let herself shed. "You stayed," he rasped, his voice weak but threaded with awe. "I told you I wasn't going anywhere," she whispered, pressing his hand to her lips. Recovery was slow, grueling. His empire repaired itself in the shadows, loyal men hunting down the last of the serpents. But Danielle stayed through every hour, every sleepless night, every battle he waged against his own pain. And something changed in him. The walls he had carried all his life, the ones built from blood and vengeance, began to crack. For the first time, he let her see the man beneath the dragon. One evening, weeks later, he finally left the hospital. His body was weaker, his side bandaged, but his spirit burned fiercer than ever. Danielle walked beside him into the quiet of his garden, the night air heavy with jasmine. "Danielle," he said, his voice low, steady, the kind of voice that carried more weight than 1,000 vows. She turned to him, her heart trembling. "Yes." He studied her, the moonlight catching the sharp planes of his face, softening them. His hand lifted, cupping her cheek the way he had that first night he'd almost kissed her. Only now there was no hesitation, I spent my life thinking I couldn't be touched, that anyone who got close would only end up dead or used against me. But you," his voice faltered, just slightly, "you made me want more. You made me fight harder. Not for the Empire. For us." Her breath caught. His thumb brushed her lip. "I love you, Danielle. And if I could, I would burn this entire world until there was nothing left but you in my arms." Tears slipped down her cheeks, hot and unstoppable. "I love you too, Jaehyun. Even when I was afraid, even when I told myself I shouldn't. I couldn't stop." His mouth captured hers then, slow and searing. A kiss that carried every battle, every promise, every heartbeat they had almost lost. When they finally broke apart, his hand slipped into his pocket. Danielle gasped as he dropped to one knee. The dragon, the man the world feared, knelt before her with nothing but raw devotion in his eyes. He held out a small velvet box, the ring inside gleaming in the moonlight. "I cannot give you peace," he said softly. "I cannot give you safety. But I can give you everything else. My heart, my loyalty, my soul. Danielle Williams, will you marry me?" Her hands flew to her mouth, her tears falling faster now. She laughed through them, trembling with joy. "Yes," she whispered, then louder, stronger, her voice breaking with emotion. "Yes, Jaehyun, 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger, rising to pull her into his arms. Their kiss sealed the vow, fierce and unyielding. And for the first time since she had stepped into his world, Danielle felt no fear. She was no longer the captive, no longer the weakness. She was the woman who had tamed the dragon.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please like and share your views with us in the comments section. Also subscribe and click on the notification bell to be notified about all new stories.